What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Celtics Daily with me, Mike Zakarian, and congrats. It's game day, baby. Game 2 in the Garden tonight as the Celtics try to go up 2-0 against the Orlando Magic on their quest for a repeat as NBA champs. But unfortunately, not everything's coming up roses and sunshine. We got some bad news yesterday. Jason Tatum, if you can remember in game 1, he goes up strong for the rim, trying to throw down a dunk. KCP and Wendell Carter Jr. of the Magic converge on him and kind of foul him a little too aggressively. If you remember, KCP pulls down on the elbow a little bit like he was in WrestleMania. KCP picks up a flagrant foul. However, Jason Tatum lands a little funky, then goes into the locker room. Well, finishes the game, takes the free throws, not necessarily makes the free throws, but post-game goes into the x-ray machine. X-rays come out clean. If you don't remember him going into the x-rays, you might remember his mom out there saying, do you want me to go fight in the Orlando Magic? Which, respect. We need more of that. Bring that toughness. It's playoff mentality. You know who probably loves that? Joe Mazzulla. But the x-rays came back clean. It seemed like everything was good. And then yesterday, reports started coming out that, in fact, Tatum was doubtful for game 2. And this is from Jeff Stott's Twitter doctor, we'll call it, in street clothes on Twitter. He says, Jason Tatum's wrist injury is being described as a right distal radius bone bruise. Now, that is no words that I understand, but he went on to say, translation, the wrist end, the distal, of the forearm bone on the thumb side, the radius, has been damaged. Now, the average time for lost for nondescript wrist bone contusions is just 2 to 3 days. So the upside here, or the bright side, if you will, shout out the Killers, is that Jason Tatum, hopefully, is just missing game 2. And I saw another report, too, that said that he can play through an injury like this if he chooses to. It's more of a pain tolerance versus this could get worse the more he plays. So the good news is maybe the Celtics are looking at this like, hey, listen, the Magic are 7 seed. We are the 2 seed. We have one of the deepest teams in the league. We have so many weapons. Maybe we give Tatum the night off. We take game 2 at the Garden. And even if we lose game 2, we go back to Orlando. Game 3 isn't until Saturday. So there's plenty of time for Tatum to get healthy, to get rested, and then they go on and continue our quest for the chip. But definitely some scary news. Not what we were looking for to start this playoff run. We thought we were just going to be paying attention to Jaylen Brown's knees and the way that Kristaps Porzingis walks, which is like a giraffe. But instead, now we're worried about Tatum a little bit. But again, I think that's the best possible news outside of seeing him miss a game, is that it seems like it's just a pain tolerance thing, just going to be a couple of days, and should, at the very least, be good to go, close to 100%. For game 3, which again, I think is on Saturday in Orlando. So, JB, KP, Big Al, Drew, I need everybody stepping up a little bit. Derek White, feel free to drop another 30-point banger on him. Speaking of Derek White, the Athletic released a report where they do those anonymous polls. And Derek White was like voted the second most underrated player in the league. I love that. I see an all-star in Derek White's future. What do you guys think? I think it's close. He's gotten close a couple of times. I think it's time. I would say Brad Stevens and the Boston Celtics won that trade. Speaking of guys that we need to step up, let's give some love to the 6th man of the year, announced last night on TNT, Peyton freaking Pritchard. Finally got that award, the 6th man of the year. Well deserved. Also, again, shouts to Brad Stevens, got that man under contract on a beautiful, beautiful deal. But Peyton Pritchard absolutely deserved it. I saw there was a little bit of buzz for Malik Beasley here. Even Bill Simmons on his podcast said that he had voted for Malik Beasley. I don't know if that was like a reverse jinx move or what. Then the Beantown guy's not voting for Pritchard. What are we doing here? But let's give you some Peyton Pritchard stats from this season, okay? Peyton Pritchard on the year. 246 3-point makes. That's the most in NBA history off the bench. He scored over 1,000 points, racking up 1,079. He had 23 different 20-point games. He had a 40-point game. And maybe the most crazy stat out of all of this, and this is like straight up Nikola Jokic numbers, his plus minus, he was plus 482. One of the most important people on our team. When Peyton Pritchard can come in, he like weirdly is a good rebounder. He'll get in there, get a little feisty. There was a report from him. I think he said this in an interview yesterday, that he was studying Marcus Smart and Kyle Lowry's game over the offseason, trying to find other small guards, how they defend, different ways they use their body, and definitely it paid off. So shout out Peyton Pritchard. I know there was a time, I think it was actually last trade deadline, not this most recent one, but the one before, rumors that Pritchard could get moved. Obviously, in a more high usage role, I think his numbers would be even crazier, and he's proven that he could take on that role. But man, I'm so grateful that we were able to hold on to him, and for him to put up these numbers and win Six Man of the Year. He's got a championship ring under him, and I think what's just so impressive is he can do whatever the team requires. That's honestly what's so impressive of the Celtics team in general is that everybody seems to like an amoeba, just like morph into the role that's required. So that's why even with Tatum missing, I'm not too concerned tonight. Obviously, long term, I'd be scared, but they just have guys that know how to step up. So whether it's Peyton coming off the bench for 15 minutes just to be a microwave and just see what he can cook, or if it's somebody's going to be out and now all of a sudden he's playing 28 plus minutes or something in the game, we know that he can do that. So shout out to Peyton Pritchard. Also, one other thing as we get ready to talk about game two tonight, Joe Mazzulla voted like one of the top three, top four coaches in the league this year as well from that athletic anonymous poll. I believe it was like Mark Daigneault was up there. I'm sure Steve Kerr was up there. Let me see. Yeah, Mark Daigneault received the most amount of votes out of the 147. He had 21%. Kenny Atkinson was second. Eric Spoelstra was third. But Joe Mazzulla was fourth, and he was right there. He was like right there in those numbers. So shout out Joe Mazzulla. If you're not like online all of the time, maybe you're not seeing the supercut of some of the craziest quotes Joe Mazzulla has given to the press over this past season and a half. It's just the best. Joe Mazzulla is the best. I might get a Joe Mazzulla tattoo. All right, let's go. Game two. Can Boston do it without Tatum? Touched upon this a little bit. We know that the Orlando Magic defense, what they thrive in, is limiting three-point attempts. Now, we saw Derek White go 7 for 12 from three in game one, so let's see how that looks in game two. But I would expect Kristaps Porzingis to have a bigger role. I honestly thought that was going to happen regardless of the Tatum health situation, just because Porzingis wasn't super active on the offensive end in game one. And I don't think he's like in the locker room being like, I need more touches. KP need more. I don't think he's doing that. I just think that is the direction they're going to go in game two, especially with no Tatum. I think you're going to see KP try to bring out Jonathan Isaac, try to bring out Wendell Carter Jr. to the three-point line. I think we're going to just see some more three-point chucks from KP. But I think for me, the biggest thing we need to check in on is Jaylen Brown's knee, right? We saw him have that a fine first game. We saw him get above the rim one time when he threw it down. But what's Jaylen Brown's health situation going to look like here in game two? Are they going to be able to just still assert themselves offensively while still bringing the level of defensive intensity that is required to win a playoff game? Because Orlando, like, listen, Paolo and Franz, they're going to do their work. We saw Paolo can get any shot that he wants, even when we threw Drew Holiday on him. So I imagine Paolo and Franz combined for another 55, 60 points or whatever. But are the others, I'm looking at Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. We saw Gary Harris minutes. The real thing I'm wondering if Jamal Mosley, the head coach of the Orlando Magic, is going to do is extend the Anthony Black minutes a little bit. I think he is a pretty long, rangy guard that they have coming off the bench. Their guard play has been woof, not great, Bob. But I wonder if we see him get a little bit more run just because of how long he is defensively, and maybe he can provide a little bit of a spark, because I just don't think this is a series for Cole Anthony to thrive offensively. Our defensive tenacity that our guards bring, it's just not good for Cole Anthony. And Corey Joseph, I just cannot believe is playing starter minutes in a playoff series in the year 2025. Like, what's going on? So again, I think this is going to be a tough matchup without Tatum. But I do think if the Celtics are still able to bring the energy on the defensive end, even without Tatum, or Boston should win game two. I just don't think Orlando can score 100 points. If they're trying, if Boston is trying and locked in on the defensive end, I don't think Orlando's going to be able to score over 100 points because, again, Paolo and Franz will get theirs. But I don't know. You're probably like Googling some of these names. Like, who are the Gary Harris, Anthony Black, Caleb Houston? Yeah, like, do you know who those guys are? Right. And no disrespect, although that clearly was followed by some disrespect. I don't think they can get up there. So if Boston can bring the defense, I think we'll be okay. And then Peyton Pritchard and Derek White. Listen, you were just voted most underrated. Peyton Pritchard voted Sixth Man of the Year. It is time to rise up. Let's go. Protect this house. Protect the garden. Before we get out of here, let's get you caught up on some of the stuff that happened late night in case you missed it. Luka Doncic returned, right? The Lakers dropped game one because Minnesota shot like 98% from three-point land. Everybody freaked out. Nico Harrison of the Dallas Mavericks was like, see, I made the right trade all along. Well, Luka came out and cooked last night. LeBron looked a little bit better as well. He had like a 21, 11, and 7 game. Lakers get the W, 1-1. They go back to Minnesota. That is going to be a fun series. A series that's not going to be super fun. The Memphis Grizzlies and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Let Memphis go home. They shouldn't have to play this game. You lose game 1 by 50. Let's just jump to game 4. There's no reason to play 4 of these, right? OKC won again pretty handily, so they'll go back to Memphis up 2 games to none. Another maybe shocker for some of you, the Indiana Pacers. They are now up 2-0 on the Milwaukee Bucks. They held home court. Damian Lillard return was not enough. And now you can already see the rumblings. It's hitting the podcast circuits, on the YouTube videos, it's in the media. If the Bucks kind of get swept, if they get cooked, even in 5, is this it for Giannis? We saw the New York Post was like, hey, Giannis owns some real estate in New York. The Knicks won't be able to do it unless it was like a massive trade. But the Brooklyn Nets, they didn't clear space for W's, but they cleared space for cap room. So maybe you see a Giannis Antetokounmpo coming to Brooklyn in the Barclays Center. As somebody who lives in New York, wouldn't hate that. And I wouldn't hate Milwaukee getting dismantled. But I'm not going to count Doc Rivers out yet as a head coach. They're down 2-0, but at least they're not up 3-1. For those of you that remember, nobody likes to blow a 3-1 lead quite like Doc Rivers. Kyle Kuzma actually scored some points, so congrats. The bar was low to see if he could surpass his Game 1 Tony Snell performance of zeros across the board, but he got there. But more importantly, the Pacers go up 2-0. They look like they're going to be a legit threat to the Cleveland Cavaliers in round 2, which, by the way, the Cavs and the Miami Heat also play their second game tonight. And then late night, if you can stay up late or if you're on the West Coast, we've got Steph Curry, the Golden State Warriors, taking on the Houston Rockets. Draymond Green was yapping about Karl Anthony Towns on his podcast again. I'm not rooting for anybody to get hurt, but like if Draymond Green got in a fight, I wouldn't be mad. On the court. I want to see Amin Thompson and Steven Adams square up with Draymond just one time. Let's get the popcorn ready. Thank you guys for hanging out this morning. I'm excited for game 2. Prayers up to Jason Tatum and his wrist, to Jaylen Brown and his knees, and to Kristaps Porzingis and his walking gait. Now, if it was your first time here, do me a favor. Smash the subscribe, like the video, and just leave a comment. Who are you most excited about with the NBA playoffs as we're now almost 2 games in across all of the series? Appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you next time.